And we're here at the Publix that's located at Mariner Boulevard and County Line Road in the very south end of Hernando County, really right on the Hernando-Pasco County line. And we're actually behind the store in the service area, the service road that runs behind the Publix Plaza here. And what we've pieced together so far, and again, this is extremely preliminary, I've got to go on record to say that the facts may change as we get more information from victims and witnesses and so forth. But what we know right now is about 12 minutes after 10 this morning, we started receiving calls that there was shots being fired behind the Publix. We had at least 2 or 3 different people call, and it was kind of hard to figure out exactly what was going on. But once we got here, we found out that there was an individual who's our suspected shooter, that apparently some altercation started in Pasco County. We believe it was either an aggravated assault or maybe an attempted robbery or something like that. It did involve a firearm, but our preliminary information is that there were no shots fired. Again, we have not verified that with Pasco. We just heard that from sources informally from some of our brothers and sisters in Pasco. But that suspected shooter, sometime after that original altercation, made his way up to an area here behind Publix. He interacted with an individual that was known to him, and he knew that person was likely going to be behind Publix around this time of day. That person, again, knew the suspect in this case. The suspect approached that person in a vehicle, started demanding money and anything of value. Did have a firearm, so it does appear that it was an attempted robbery by this individual known to the suspected shooter. During that altercation, no shots were fired, but right in the middle of that, our suspect heard a dog barking in a vehicle very close by, totally unrelated to either of the individuals involved in that altercation. And the suspect left his original target, went over to the individual in the car that had the dog, and in some order, we're not sure if he shot the dog first or the human first, but the individual in the car was shot more than once, and the dog, our information is the dog was shot more than once. The suspect then tried to find his original victim and couldn't find it. The person had hidden and decided to leave the area. The suspect left the area for a very short time, about the time deputies were arriving. The deputies were attending to our victim in the car, the victim that was unrelated to the original altercation, and the dog. About that time, witnesses started saying that the suspect had arrived back at the scene, and deputies engaged that suspect. Of course, drew down based on the circumstances. The person got out of the vehicle, originally put his hands up. The suspect then turned around and started to reach back in the vehicle. Fortunately, almost immediately had the wherewithal to turn back around and put his hands back up, so the deputy was not forced to use deadly force in that case, although it was very, very close to the point where the deputy did have to use deadly force against the suspect. The suspect was taken into custody, and the victim, the human victim, was taken to a local trauma center. The victim dog was taken to animal services, and I believe the vet there stabilized the dog, and now the dog is being taken to an emergency surgery center for animals. Both the victims, the dog and the human, as of right now, our information is both are still alive. Obviously, both of them have very serious injuries, and of course their actual status right now is unknown. That's pretty much all I have right now. Fortunately, the original victim is fine, the person that originally interacted with the suspect. And again, we don't know a lot about what happened in Pasco. Detectives are working on that, but things have been very busy over the last hour, as you might imagine. So if you have any questions, I might be able to answer a couple of them for you.
Sheriff, the shooter in Pasco, is that the same as the shooter?
Well, he wasn't a shooter in Pasco. There was some sort of altercation. Our preliminary information is through kind of informal sources that it may have started in Pasco. Again, the victim there is unrelated to the victim here, but the suspect, I believe, knew both victims. But the victim in Pasco was the victim possibly of either an aggravated assault or maybe an attempted robbery or a robbery. May have even had something stolen from them. But again, right now our big concern is actually what's happening here. The suspect is in custody. Then we'll follow up with Pasco to try to get some more information.
I guess I'm trying to get at is the person with the gun that came from Pasco to here, the person that shot the individual?
Correct. That's absolutely correct. He's our suspected shooter here of the totally innocent person and the dog. Fortunately, both people he interacted with who he knew, neither of those, at least as far as we can tell, nobody else has been shot other than the totally innocent person that just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And he gave up?
The suspected shooter, yes, he did give up. It sounded like he was reaching back in, because there was a gun in the vehicle. He was reaching back in for the gun and may have wanted to engage deputies, but had a change of heart, fortunately for him, before the deputies took action that would have resulted in lethal force.
Are you guys going to have a name on him?
The suspect, yes, he's right now in custody. I think he may have to be medically cleared. Detectives want to talk to him, and we'll release his name. I don't even know his name yet, but his name will be released later after we determine what charges will be filed against that individual. So,
outside of the dog barking, was there any other interaction between this victim and the shooter?
No, that's the ironic thing. All the witnesses will say the dog started barking. The car was parked a ways away. I don't know how far away, because it's still where the original vehicle was that he interacted with. Moved, obviously tried to get away once the shooter left. So we're not exactly sure to the actual specific spot. We're trying to narrow that down. But apparently this vehicle was parked some distance away, and the dogs just started barking, and the suspected shooter caught his attention, and he went over there and just started shooting at the dog and or the human, and I don't know in which order. So, but both of them ended up getting shot, both the human and the dog, in that vehicle that was totally unrelated to the original altercation that occurred here.
And what happens now in the investigation? Do you guys have multiple witnesses? I mean,
yeah, we have several people. We believe there's going to be a considerable amount of video here that's going to be able to give us information on what happened, but there were some witnesses who I think at least one or two saw everything, and of course the victim, the original victim, saw a lot of it, and then the cameras, if all of them are working, we should have multiple angles of what exactly occurred. But obviously our person who normally downloads that stuff just got here, has several businesses and several locations to go through, so that's probably going to be hours before we're even able to see those videos. So, all right, any other questions? All right, thank you all for coming. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can contact the public information officer, and we'll be happy to get those answered if we're able to. All right, y'all have a good day.
Hey folks, JB here with you live on WFLA Now. That was, of course, the sheriff there in Hernando County, that being Sheriff Al Nienhuis, speaking on the shooting that occurred behind the Publix around a little after 10 o'clock this morning in Hernando County. We've got a couple different news stories breaking at this hour, so we are going to get going on this live stream, but we might have additional live streams for additional breaking news stories that are occurring at this hour in the Tampa Bay area. We are checking on reports of a possible plane crash in Mayaca City, that is in Manatee County. We're also checking on reports of a fire that has broken out, and I'll kind of pass along, again, preliminary information, a possible fire in Indian Shores, that being in Pinellas County. So a lot occurring at this hour in the Tampa Bay area. For the latest on this story, you can click on the link in the description on this video. It'll take you over to WFLA.com, the WFLA app. We'll also have the latest in our newscast tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. Again, we have a person shot, wrong place, wrong time type of victim, somebody who's behind the Publix, who was involved in this altercation with this gunman. We also have the victim's dog being shot, transported to a vet center, an emergency vet center for emergency surgery. If we have any new details on the person that was shot, the dog that was shot, we'll pass it along to you on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. We've got to get going. Other news stories developing at this hour in Tampa Bay. Be on the lookout for additional live streams. We'll be right back.